You ever get that feeling? The one that nags at you in the back of your mind, like a little rock stuck in your shoe that you can't quite shake out? That's where I was. My name's Ben. I'm 41 years old. Been married to Laura for just about 18 years now. We've got 2 kids, Ellie, who just turned 14 and thinks she's 30, and Lucas, who's 10 and still thinks fart jokes are the height of comedy. It's not a glamorous life, but it's ours. Or at least, I thought it was. It all started with the SUV. Laura's pride and joy, a white Ford Edge she insisted we buy 2 years ago because it's perfect for soccer practice and Costco runs. It was barely broken in when the trouble started. First, it was the brakes, then the check engine light, then something about the transmission fluid needing a flush, then a new battery. And always, the repairs had to be done at Rick's Auto Repair. Now, I'm not the most mechanically inclined guy out there, but I know enough to realize something smelled fishy. Brand new cars don't fall apart like that unless you're driving them off cliffs every weekend. Rick had been our mechanic for years. Middle-aged, wiry, with a permanent smudge of grease on his cheek and a laugh that sounded like a rusty hinge. Nice enough guy. Or so I thought. Laura always insisted on Rick. I trust him, she'd say with that breezy tone she used whenever she didn't want to be questioned. He knows our cars inside and out. Maybe that's what first got me thinking. Or maybe it was the way she started dressing when she went for these so-called repairs. Not dolled up exactly, not enough to draw obvious attention, but different. Lip gloss. A little extra time spent on her hair. A spritz of that perfume she usually saved for special occasions. At first, I brushed it off. Maybe she just wanted to feel good about herself. After all, who was I to begrudge her a little confidence boost? But it didn't stop there. The visits got longer. An oil change turned into a 3-hour affair. A tire rotation somehow ate up an entire Saturday afternoon, and the excuses started piling up. Oh, Rick had to run out for a part. They had a last-minute emergency, and I didn't want to be rude. I swung by Starbucks and lost track of time. Each time, her smile got a little too wide, her explanations a little too rehearsed. I told myself it was nothing, that I was being crazy, that you don't throw away nearly 2 decades of marriage over a feeling. But the feeling wouldn't go away. One Saturday, I decided to keep myself busy mowing the lawn. It's one of those mindless chores that lets your brain wander. And wander it did. Halfway through, sweat dripping into my eyes, I realized something. The SUV wasn't in the driveway. I hadn't even heard it leave. I pulled out my phone and called her. Straight to voicemail. Texted. No reply. An hour later, she pulled into the driveway like nothing had happened. Windows down, music playing, takeout bag riding shotgun. Hey, honey, she called, hopping out like she was walking on sunshine. Picked up lunch. Hope you're hungry. She looked good. Too good. Hair a little messy. Cheeks flushed. That same perfume lingering around her like a cloud. I forced a smile and wiped my hands on my jeans. Where were you? I asked, real casual. Oh, Rick thought he heard a rattle under the hood last time I was in, so I popped by. Better safe than sorry, right? She said, laughing like it was no big deal. A rattle under the hood. Funny, I thought. Because the last time I drove that SUV, it ran smoother than a brand new lawnmower. Still, I didn't push. Didn't accuse. Didn't give her any reason to get defensive. But as she leaned in to kiss me, that's when I smelled it. Cologne. Not hers. Not mine. Strong. Musky. The kind that clings to your skin after someone's been a little too close. I pulled back slightly and gave her a small nod, pretending not to notice. Inside, though? Inside, I was dying. I didn't want to believe it. God, I didn't. I didn't want to be that guy, the one who checks his wife's phone, who follows her around town, who turns into a suspicious, bitter shell of himself. But something deep down told me. This wasn't just paranoia. This wasn't just bad breaks and oil changes. Something was happening. And if I didn't find out what it was, I was going to lose more than just my pride. That night, after the kids went to bed, I sat out on the porch with a cold beer in one hand and my thoughts eating me alive. I thought about all the little signs I'd missed. The late nights, the extra trips, the new clothes, the way she started laughing at her phone when she thought I wasn't looking. I thought about Rick, the way he always clapped me on the back when I picked up the car, asking about the family like we were old war buddies. The way he smiled at Laura, too wide, too warm. And I thought about how stupid I was for not seeing it sooner. I finished the beer, tossed the bottle into the recycling bin, and sat there for a long time, staring out at the empty driveway. Tomorrow, I promised myself. Tomorrow I'll start looking. Really looking. Because if there's one thing I've learned in life, it's that when your gut tells you something's wrong, it's usually right. The next morning, I woke up early. Earlier than usual. The sun wasn't even up yet, just that soft blue glow seeping through the blinds. Laura was still asleep beside me, her breathing slow and even. I watched her for a minute, wondering how many mornings like this we'd shared without me realizing what was slipping through my fingers. I slipped out of bed quietly, made myself some coffee, and sat at the kitchen table in the half-dark, nursing the hot mug and thinking. If I was going to do this, really do this, I had to be smart about it. No accusations. No fights. No drama. Just facts. Hard, cold facts. After breakfast, Laura mentioned she was heading out to run some errands. Didn't say where. Didn't offer details. I just nodded and smiled. Need me to pick anything up while you're out? I asked, keeping my voice light. She shook her head, kissed me on the cheek, and breezed out the door. I waited a few minutes, just enough to make sure she wasn't circling back, and then I grabbed my keys and headed out too. Not long after, I found myself parked a few houses down from Rick's Auto Repair, engine idling, trying to act like I wasn't doing the saddest stakeout in suburban history. It was a small shop, 3 bays, a dingy little waiting area, a couple of cracked plastic chairs out front. Rick's beat-up Chevy pickup was parked in the back lot, along with a few junkers he was probably fixing up for extra cash. About 15 minutes later, Laura's white SUV rolled into view. My heart sank. She didn't even park in the front lot where customers usually did. She drove around back, behind the building, out of sight. Interesting. I killed the engine and slumped down in my seat, heart hammering against my ribs like a boxer working the speed back. A few minutes passed. No sign of her. Then the back door of the garage cracked open, and there she was, Laura, laughing at something Rick said as he held the door for her. She wasn't carrying any paperwork. No keys. Nothing that said, official car business. Just that same jacket, the same easy smile, the same glow I'd seen the day before. They stood there talking too close. Rick reached out and brushed something off her shoulder, real casual, like it was the most natural thing in the world. Laura laughed again and touched his arm. Not just a polite pat, either. A slow, lingering touch. The kind you don't give your mechanic. I felt my throat tighten. I wanted to storm over there, drag her back to the car, demand to know what the hell was going on. But I didn't. I stayed put. Because somewhere in the back of my mind, I knew this wasn't about catching her. Not really. It was about seeing it for myself. No more guessing. No more denial. I sat there for another 15 minutes, feeling like a fool, until Laura finally climbed back into the SUV and pulled away. I didn't follow her. Didn't need to. I'd seen enough. I drove home slowly, feeling like someone had popped a hole in my chest and all the air was leaking out. When I pulled into the driveway, the house looked different somehow. Smaller. Quieter. Lonelier. I sat in the car for a long time before going inside, hands gripping the steering wheel like it was the only thing anchoring me to the ground. That afternoon, Laura came home with a grocery bag in one hand and a big smile plastered across her face. "Hey, babe. Picked up your favorite coffee," she said, holding out the bag like a peace offering. I took it, thanked her, and forced a smile. Because that's what you do when you're playing a part in a life that's quietly crumbling around you. We made small talk over dinner. The kids bickered about who got more mac and cheese. Laura told a story about running into an old friend at the store. It all felt so normal. And yet, underneath the surface, everything had changed. Later that night, when the house was quiet and the kids were in bed, I sat out on the porch again, staring up at the stars. I thought about the promises we made to each other all those years ago. The vows. The dreams. The quiet little hopes you build when you think you're safe. And I wondered, how does something that starts out so right end up so broken? Maybe it wasn't one big thing. Maybe it was 1,000 little cuts we never noticed. Busy schedules. Unspoken resentments. Words left unsaid. Or maybe it was simpler than that. Maybe people just get tired. And when they do, they start looking for something or someone that makes them feel new again. Whatever the reason, it didn't change the facts. Laura wasn't just drifting away from me. She was already gone. I just hadn't caught up to the truth yet. But I would. I had to. Because no matter how much it hurt, no matter how much it tore me up inside, I needed to know the full story. And the truth was waiting for me. I just had to have the guts to find it. The next couple days were a strange kind of normal. Laura kept moving through life like everything was fine. School drop-offs, grocery runs, endless laundry. The usual rhythm of a family that looks just right from the outside. But once you see the crack in the mirror, you can't unsee it. And I couldn't look at her, or us, the same way anymore. Every word, every smile, every casual touch felt rehearsed. Like we were both actors in a play that had long since lost its audience. I knew I needed proof. Real proof. Not just gut feelings and suspicious glances. And as it turned out, I didn't have to look far. It happened late one Thursday afternoon. Laura had taken Lucas to his friend's birthday party, and Ellie was holed up in her room with her headphones, pretending we didn't exist, typical teenager stuff. The SUV was sitting in the driveway, keys still hanging from the hook by the door. I hesitated for a second, some part of me still clinging to the idea that maybe I was wrong. But I wasn't. I grabbed the keys and headed outside, heart pounding like I was breaking into Fort Knox instead of my own wife's car. At first, it looked normal. A couple of receipts on the dashboard. A half-empty water bottle in the cup holder. A forgotten sweatshirt crumpled in the back seat. But then I opened the glove compartment. Tucked behind the registration in the owner's manual was a small velvet bag. The kind you usually get from a jewelry store. My stomach dropped. I opened it slowly, half hoping to find something innocent. Inside was a bracelet. A man's bracelet. Thick leather, simple design. Not my style. Not anything I'd ever seen before. And tucked under the bracelet, a small folded note. I unfolded it with shaking hands. Just a few words, scribbled in hurried, messy handwriting. Thanks for yesterday. Can't wait to see you again. R. Rick. I sat there, staring at that stupid little piece of paper, feeling the blood drain from my face. Shaking a little now, I reached further into the glove box, sweeping my hand across the bottom. And that's when my fingers brushed against something else. A crumpled little plastic wrapper. The kind nobody mistakes for anything else. I didn't need to open it to know what it was. Didn't need to imagine what had happened. They hadn't even bothered to hide the evidence. It sat there, carelessly tossed, like yesterday's trash. In that moment, something inside me hardened. Not rage exactly. Not sadness either. Just a cold, simple understanding. Whatever lines we were supposed to respect, they were long gone. That was it. There it was. The truth. No more wondering. No more guessing. She wasn't just drifting. She wasn't just unhappy. She was already gone. She just hadn't packed her bags yet. I leaned back in the seat, the leather cold against my shoulders, and closed my eyes. For a long minute, I just breathed. In. Out. I could have lost it right then. Could have screamed, smashed the bracelet against the dashboard, torn the note into a million pieces. But I didn't. Because somewhere deep down, a new part of me was waking up. The part that wasn't ready to play the fool anymore. The part that wanted her to see what she'd done. Really see it? That's when the idea started forming. Simple. Clean. Devastating. I was going to set a trap. No yelling. No accusations. I was going to let her walk herself right into it. And when she did, there'd be no denying it. No lies slick enough to wriggle out of. She'd see what she looked like from the outside. She'd see herself the way I saw her now, and maybe, just maybe, it would break something inside her too. The plan started coming together almost too easily. First step, act normal. Smile. Laugh. Be the same old bin she thought she still had wrapped around her finger. Second step, give her the opportunity. Rick's shop was closed on Sundays. I knew that. He liked to post about it on Facebook, Family Day, and all that wholesome garbage. If Laura told me she had to swing by Rick's that day, I'd know for sure. And I'd be ready. Third step, the setup. I still had a buddy from high school, Greg, who owed me a favor. Guy worked in security systems now, cameras, mics, GPS trackers, you name it. One quick call and Greg agreed to hook me up. Nothing illegal, just a little peace of mind package, as he called it. Hidden dash cam wired into the SUV's power system. Audio recorder hidden under the seat. If Laura went somewhere she wasn't supposed to, if she had a little meeting with Rick, I'd see it all, hear it all. Cold, hard evidence. No arguments. No sob stories. Just the truth, laid bare. I hung up with Greg and sat there in the SUV, staring at the bracelet lying in my lap. Funny, I thought. All the things we leave behind without realizing it. A receipt. A piece of jewelry. A note. Little fragments of ourselves, telling stories we didn't mean for anyone else to hear. Laura had left her story right here, between a manual and an expired inspection sticker. And pretty soon, she was going to have to answer for it. Sunday came faster than I expected. It was one of those mornings that looked perfect if you didn't know any better. Blue sky. Light breeze. Birds going nuts in the oak tree out front. The kind of day you usually spend grilling burgers, maybe watching the kids run around the backyard. But for me, it felt more like a funeral. I moved through the morning like a ghost. Cooked some bacon and eggs. Played with Lucas a little. Pretended to listen when Laura talked about how she needed to swing by the store. And, oh, maybe stop by Rick's too because, surprise, surprise, something feels weird with the brakes again. Sure, Laura. Whatever you say. I just smiled and nodded. Better have Rick take a look at it, I said, handing her the keys with a calmness that didn't match the storm inside my chest. She gave me a kiss on the cheek, light and easy, like we were still two people who trusted each other. And then she was gone. I watched her pull out of the driveway, waited exactly 5 minutes, and opened my laptop. Greg had set me up with a clean, simple system. One click, and there it was, the live feed from the SUV's dash cam. Another click, and the GPS map popped up, a little blinking dot headed straight for Rick's. Right on schedule. I leaned back in my chair and waited. Laura pulled into the lot behind the garage, out of sight from the main road. No other customers around. Rick's beat-up truck parked nearby, the hood propped open like it was just another day fixing engines. The garage door was cracked open, just enough to let her slip inside. The dash cam feed caught her stepping out of the SUV, smoothing her hair in the reflection of the window, tugging her shirt just so. Like she was getting ready for a date, not a car inspection. Rick appeared a second later, wiping his hands on a greasy rag, grinning wide enough to split his face in two. They met halfway. No hesitation. No pretense. She walked straight into his arms, wrapping herself around him like it was the most natural thing in the world. He kissed her, long, slow, one hand on the back of her neck, the other sliding down her waist. I stared at the screen, my heart slamming against my ribs. I always thought if this day ever came, I'd explode. That I'd punch walls, scream, break things. But I didn't. I just sat there, very still, feeling something colder than anger settled deep inside me. They disappeared into the garage together, and the door rattled shut behind them. For a few seconds, the feed showed nothing but the outside lot. Still. Quiet. Like the world had stopped turning. But Greg had thought of everything. The microphone hidden under the seat picked up their voices inside, faint, bouncing off the cinder block walls. Laura's laugh, breathless, soft. The low rumble of Rick's voice, teasing. Then the sounds got closer. Movement. Whispers. Fabric brushing against fabric. The dash cam caught glimpses through the windshield, flickers of shadow, two bodies pressed together, moving with a rhythm that left no doubts. I closed my eyes for a second, willing myself not to smash the laptop into the wall. Instead, I listened. Rick's voice, low and smug. You know, he's probably at home right now mowing the lawn or fixing something around the house, thinking he's the man of the house. Laura laughed, a sharp, bitter sound that didn't sound anything like the woman I married. He's so clueless, she said. Still thinks I'm his little suburban wife, just out getting an oil change. Rick chuckled. Let him. Makes it easier for us. Per bin, Laura said with a mocking pout I could almost hear. He's so careful, so thoughtful, so boring. Another laugh, rougher this time, almost mean. Guy wouldn't see a freight train coming if it was 2 feet in front of him. Their voices faded out for a moment, replaced by the unmistakable sound of kissing. The creak of an old workbench shifting under weight. A soft moan, hers, not his. My hands tightened into fists so hard my knuckles cracked. Still, I didn't move. I sat there and took it. Because part of me knew this was necessary. This wasn't just about proving she cheated. It was about seeing her for who she had become, someone I didn't recognize anymore. Someone who could share a bed with me one night and sneer about me the next morning. The camera picked up more, half-whispered plans between kisses. Talk about doing this more often. Talk about how he's too dumb to figure it out. Talk about how, by the time he catches on, it'll be too late. I sat back in the chair, breathing slowly, deliberately. So this was it. Not just betrayal. Not just lies. Contempt. They weren't afraid of me finding out. They didn't even think I could find out. They thought I was too blind, too trusting, too busy worrying about gutters and gas bills to ever notice my whole world slipping away. Maybe they were right. For a while. But not anymore. Not today. Today, I saw them exactly as they were. And now? Now it was my turn to play dumb. At least for a little while longer. Because the game they thought they were winning? It was about to get a whole lot messier. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling fan as it spun slow, lazy circles above me. Laura was curled up next to me, sleeping like a baby. I wondered if she even felt guilty, or if, in her mind, I deserved it for being boring, predictable, easy to fool. I wanted to hate her, but mostly, I just felt hollow. The next morning, I went through the motions. Breakfast, small talk, chores around the house, smiling, nodding, playing the fool one more time. Because today wasn't about feelings anymore. Today was about facts. I spent the afternoon reviewing the footage again, frame by frame. Every word, every look, every touch. It was painful, sure, but it also clarified things. This marriage, the life I thought we had, it had been dead for a long time. I just hadn't been brave enough to bury it. By late afternoon, I had a full folder on my laptop, video, audio, GPS logs. Enough to crush any courtroom sob story Laura might try to spin. I was ready. I figured I'd confront her that night. Calm, controlled. Lay it all out on the table. And then walk away. Simple. Clean. At least, that's what I thought. But life, real life, rarely sticks to your script. Around 6 o'clock, while Laura was out picking up dinner, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost let it go to voicemail. But something, call it instinct, made me answer. Ben Taylor, a deep voice asked. Yeah, who's this? A pause. Then, you don't know me, but you need to hear something. About your wife. And Rick. Every hair on my arm stood up. I already know, I said, voice cold. No, the man said. You don't. It's not just them. It's about your house. Your cars. Your accounts. I sat up straighter, heart starting to hammer. What the hell are you talking about? Another pause. Then the voice said something that made my stomach flip. Check your mortgage. Check the title to your vehicles. Check your joint bank account. And check who co-signed with Rick 2 months ago. The line went dead. I stared at the phone like it might start bleeding in my hand. For a second, I thought it had to be a mistake. Paranoia. Some scam. But I couldn't shake the feeling. That same sinking, twisting feeling that had led me here in the first place. I grabbed my laptop. Pulled up the bank account first. The checking account looked fine. But the savings we'd been building for 15 years, was almost empty. $37 and some change. I felt like I'd been punched. Next, I checked the mortgage portal. It should have been simple. We'd refinanced once, years ago. Fixed rate. Good standing. But when I logged in, a new loan popped up. Second mortgage. Co-signed. By Laura. And Rick. I sat there, staring at the screen, feeling the world tilt under me. 200 grand. Tied to my house. Tied to my name. Tied to their names. It got worse. The SUV? Turns out Laura had quietly transferred the title over to herself 2 months ago, right before the brake problems started. The truck? Sold. Paperwork pending. All done behind my back. All neat. All legal. Because I trusted her. Because I loved her. Because I never thought I'd need to defend myself from the woman I shared a bed with. I closed the laptop slowly, the house feeling colder around me. This wasn't just about cheating. This was about being gutted. They hadn't just broken vows. They were robbing me blind, piece by piece, while I mowed the lawn, while I fixed the sink, while I tucked our kids into bed. And I never saw it coming. At least, not until now. When Laura walked through the door a few minutes later, smiling and holding a takeout bag, I didn't say a word. I just smiled back. Because the time for talking? That was over. Now it was time to fight. And for once, finally, I wasn't going to play the fool. The next morning, I got to work. First stop, my old buddy Jason, who worked at a law office downtown. Jason wasn't the kind of guy you called if you wanted a long therapy session. He was the kind of guy you called when you needed to drop a legal hammer on somebody fast. We met at a diner over coffee. I laid it all out, the surveillance, the affair, the fake mortgage, the drained accounts. Jason listened without saying much, just taking notes in that messy handwriting of his. When I finished, he leaned back in the booth and whistled low. Man, he said, shaking his head. She didn't just cheat on you. She went full Bonnie and Clyde. I didn't smile. Jason leaned forward. All right. First thing we do, we lock down everything you've still got. Bank accounts, house, cars. You file an emergency injunction today. He scribbled some more. And you're filing for divorce. Now. No waiting. No second chances. I nodded. And the cops? I asked. Jason shrugged. Depends how far you want to take it. Fraud, theft, maybe conspiracy. You get enough evidence stacked, you could bury both of them. I didn't answer right away. Because deep down, I didn't know yet if I wanted revenge or just peace. Maybe both. We spent the next few hours setting everything up. By lunchtime, I had frozen the remaining joint accounts. I pulled my name off every credit card Laura had access to. I flagged the house mortgage for legal dispute, blocking any further movement. In 24 hours, her little empire of lies was going to start crumbling. I even had Jason help me draft a letter, cold, clean, professional, that would be delivered to her the next day. No drama, no screaming matches. Just the truth, spelled out in black and white, with legal signatures at the bottom. When I got home that evening, Laura was waiting for me in the kitchen, sipping wine, wearing that easy smile I used to love so much. "Hey babe," she said. "I was thinking, maybe we should take a little trip this fall. Just the two of us. Get away. Reconnect." I looked at her for a long moment, studying the way she tucked her hair behind her ear, the way she leaned forward just a little, the same tricks she'd used 1,000 times before. I almost laughed. She still thought she was ahead of me, still thought she was the puppet master, pulling strings while I danced. I smiled instead. "That sounds nice," I said. She beamed, walking over to wrap her arms around my waist. I let her. Because tomorrow, when the papers hit her desk, when the bank accounts froze, when the truth crashed down on her like a ton of bricks, she was going to realize something. The man she thought was a fool, he wasn't a fool anymore. And the game she thought she was playing, it was already over. The next morning started like any other. Laura was humming in the kitchen, making coffee, checking her phone, probably texting Rick, probably planning their next little errand. She had no idea that the walls around her were already caving in. At exactly 9 a.m., the process server showed up at the house. I was sitting at the kitchen table, pretending to read the paper when the doorbell rang. Laura glanced at me, confused. "You expecting someone?" "Nope," I said casually. She wiped her hands on a towel and went to the door. I watched from the table as she opened it. The man standing there was dressed neatly, holding a thick envelope. "Laura Taylor?" he asked. "Yes." "You've been served." He handed her the envelope and walked away without another word. Laura just stood there, frozen, holding the papers like they might catch fire. She turned slowly, her face pale. "What is this?" she asked, her voice already shaking. I set the paper down and looked at her calmly. "Why don't you open it and find out?" She fumbled with the envelope, pulling out the documents. Her eyes darted across the pages. The emergency injunction, the asset freeze, the divorce filing, all neatly laid out. By the time she reached the end, her hands were trembling. "Ben," she said, voice cracking. "Ben, I can explain." I held up a hand. "No," I said. "I'm not interested in explanations." Tears sprang to her eyes immediately, big, dramatic ones, the kind that used to work on me once upon a time. "But not today. You went behind my back," I said, my voice steady. "You lied. You stole. You didn't just cheat on me. You tried to destroy me." She shook her head frantically. "It's not what you think." Rick said. "He said we could fix it later, that you'd never even notice." I raised an eyebrow. "Well," I said, "looks like he was wrong about that too." She stepped toward me, reaching out like she could somehow grab the moment and shove it back into place. "Please, Ben, I made a mistake. A huge mistake. But we can fix this." I stood up. "No," I said quietly. "You made your choices. Now you live with them." She collapsed into a chair, sobbing, clutching the papers like they might save her. But they wouldn't. Not this time. It didn't take long for Laura's world to collapse. By the end of the week, the bank froze her access to every account. Her credit cards were declined at the grocery store. The second mortgage she co-signed with Rick came due, and without my signature to back it, the bank came knocking hard. The SUV? Repossessed. The house? Locked in a legal battle she couldn't afford to fight. And Rick? Well, Rick disappeared faster than smoke in the wind. Turns out he wasn't just charming the housewives. He was charming investors out of money too, and when the heat came down, he bolted, leaving Laura with a mountain of debt and no way out. She tried calling me. Once. Twice. Left long, desperate voicemails. I never answered. Because by then, it wasn't my problem anymore. She had gambled everything on a lie. And lost it all.